Uh, Good morning, good afternoon. This is the Express About Nothing podcast. I'm your host, Wesley. I am here with Brant, and this is our new format that we're going to be kind of sort of using going forward. And this is our post Super Bowl get together. So we just going to have a little conversation about this game. We already had a previous recording where we talked about it, but now I'm going to give Brant an opportunity to analyze the game from what he saw, what he liked, what he didn't like, for both sides of the game, and maybe our Eagles fans will rejoin us and we can get with them as well. But yeah, Brant. So,
Well, from a film standpoint, I thought at halftime. Now, obviously, for those that don't know, if you haven't been watching the recent episodes, which you should go back and watch and catch up on, so you'll be up to know. I had thought that Philly would win. I had thought that Philly would perform. I thought maybe we might even get the blowout. What I didn't anticipate was a lack of halftime adjustments by Andy Reid and his staff. It seemed like, and I know they had problems up front. I know that, and we talked about with the fellas just a few moments ago on the other stream about the pass rush, because they were only sending four. Vic and Tom sort of mentioned this early in the broadcast, that Vic would rather die by 1,000 cuts than give up the big play. So they wanted to keep everything in front of them. They didn't want Patrick to be able to beat them down the field. But to be able to get that pressure with four, I thought at halftime Andy Reid would make some adjustments up front, try to get, shore up the protections up there. And that never happened. Like, the only traction they got was later in the game when they started pulling the starters. But prior to that, like, Kansas City never could get anything going. And it's just simply because Philly was always in their face. Defensively, I thought Kansas City did a good job trying to bottling up Saquon. But I think the problem was twofold. One, they just looked like they just dedicated themselves to stopping Saquon, and they didn't account for Jalen being able to run. And then the other takeaway I had was, it seemed to me at times that it almost seemed like they were out of sync in a way, because they were sending so much pressure. And you got to think, like, when they're starting to be up, right, there's a gap there, right? You're saying, okay, they're up now. You would say, okay, well, we don't want to send pressure because Jalen has showed a couple times against the blitz he'll get the ball out quick, and they got burned. Nope. My man doubled down. Spags doubled down. But the one thing about it, I will say this: Spags obviously was the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, so he's very familiar with Philadelphia as far as an organization. It's interesting. It felt like and obviously Andy Reid history in Philadelphia, but it felt like like a rivalry kind of divisional game, right? You take the Super Bowl piece out of it. It had that kind of grit to it, at least from Philadelphia's standpoint. So I thought there were some things that Kansas City could have adjusted at halftime, and they just simply did not, which I think did not help their case. I mean, I know they were down 27-0, but or 24-0, but I just think that didn't help them. And without any adjustments, what can you do? It was I kind of felt at some point during this game, it was almost like Peyton and the Legion of Boom. It was almost like, Pat was a deer in headlights.
Yeah, he was having a little bit of a tough time, I would say. He had his moments where he did get the ball out and got it to some folks. Him and Travis Kelce were not on the same page. At least it was seen.
Right.
And it seemed like they were trying to get Kelce the ball, and that just was not working out. D-Hop obviously ended up playing a role, but, I mean, he wasn't involved in the earlier parts of the game. But I don't know, man. It's like Mahomes turned into my boy that played for the Vikings, and he was up there seeing ghosts. Four-man rush. And, I mean, he couldn't do nothing about it. I mean, that offensive line was made of Swiss cheese. Boy, I tell you what, it was rough out there in these streets. But hey, man, obviously the Eagles were the victors in these streets. Andy Reid got set down by his former team. So it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I don't know if I would call it a good game, just because, I mean, you already kind of sort of knew the way things were going. once
Right.
it got going. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So I wouldn't say it was a good game. Obviously, I sat down and I started focusing on redoing our show, doing a little retooling. As I
Right.
looked and watched and looked and watched and watched things get worse. Um, and then there's a couple glimpses of, hey, okay, Mahomes just put something on him. Okay, real quick. Oh, they're going for 2. Oh, they missed 2-point conversion. Oh, they can't even do onside kicks anymore because the NFL changed the rules. Okay, great. So they really can't even try to get themselves back in the game without first giving the Eagles the ball back and trying to get it back from them. And the Eagles like to run the ball right now. So unless they start passing, throwing complete passes, this clock is going to run. And that's exactly what happened, So I think the NFL definitely had an impact on the game because of, their rule change and the fact that you can't do onsides anytime to try to get yourself back into it. You gotta,
Right.
you gotta focus on your defense. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit tougher, but regardless, you play within the rules in which you have in front of you, and the Chiefs couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. And the onsides they tried to do, they didn't get those either. So it's not even a guarantee that they would have worked anyway. But what you want to say, Brent?
Oh no, I was just gonna say no. I agree with many of your points. I was looking, it's fascinating when you go back and kind of review. I thought a lot this year, and I didn't want to jinx them the other day when we were talking about it. But last year we talked about Philly as the first 10 games, right? And there were a lot of they went in by the seat of their pants. One play here, you would say, Wes, one call here that helps them set up a play. And then we got to like week 10, and then you and I, like, we were talking about it, and then Philly started imploding, and you were like, well, Philly just been getting by right now. They
really were, though, man. That.
But Kansas City had that all year long to me this year. I felt like they were living on the edge, and then they got to the playoffs, and they got teams, and I mean, Byron mentioned this, but I'll break it down a little further. They got teams that really, until you got to the Bills, sort of kind of just happened to be in the playoffs, but weren't really necessarily all, because you think about it, the Texans, okay, CJ Stroud, after the latter part of the season when homeboy got hurt, CJ Stroud wasn't CJ Stroud he had been for a season and a half. He was slightly altered. And so,
yeah,
I mean, while he played okay in the playoff game, you're playing that, right? Okay. You sent Lamar, and while that's happening, right, Lamar and Josh Allen are doing battle on the other side, the battle of the MVP candidates, as it were, the reigning MVP, and I guess the newly crowned MVP.
The one they crowned.
Yeah. The newly crowned MVP. And that's the one day crown because the stats don't stat out, but whatever. It is what it is. And so to me, they didn't fight. They didn't really meet a team. And I know Josh Allen got a little history, and I know the Bills play very hard, but I still didn't see that level of fight, the desperation. I felt like Philly came out and were desperate. Like, even before the score started trending their way, I felt like, especially defensively, they wanted to impose their will. And obviously that's a given anytime you have a defense take the field, right? But I mean, it was like they wanted it very badly. And you could kind of tell the body language of Kansas City after, I'd say, probably their third or fourth drive. Kind of let me know what kind of night we were in for. So I thought that this could happen. But again, the key to it would have been Patrick, and it was Patrick. I mean, obviously the line was what was like a sieve, and they're just running through, man. They just shoot back there. But the lack of ability to adjust, to me, speaks real volumes about what went on at halftime. Yeah, an extended halftime. And normally Super Bowl halftime adjustments generally have been pretty good. I mean, you go back and they kind of winked at it when they asked Rob Gronkowski before they came back to, before Kendrick's halftime show, was like, this is a guy that knows 28-3, right? So, and my man was like, well, it just depends on what they do when they come out. Because even Gronk kind of realized, like, it was different. I seen Pat doing this kind of looking back and forth right before halftime. I was like, now Tom was looking down. You get Tom to throw that head down. hey, you might be still in some trouble. So, and then again, the other piece is Philly didn't rest on their laurels when it came out in the second half. They continued to put the pressure on them. They didn't do what And I'm not trying to throw shots at. I know my brother-in-law may or may not be watching. I don't know, but if he is, not throwing shots at Atlanta, but they stayed true to who they were in that first half, continued to run the ball, continued to play with high defensive intensity. And they kept getting home to Patrick, and they kept getting back there and disrupting. Even when they weren't hitting him, he was having to sling the ball out before he was ready, which led to, turnovers and things throughout the game. So I just think that they hadn't met anything like that, right? And I kind of felt like after Philly dismantled Washington, I thought, okay, they for real. Like if you didn't think, okay, all right, sure, they won't go beat Green Bay, okay. Mm-hmm. Then, okay, you didn't think, okay, they're gonna beat LA. When they dismantled Washington, I was like, okay, and I know division, but I'm like, they might be for real. So I think that kind of bore it out there. Now I got a question for you, Wes, and I know the fellas aren't here. Very, very early for us to talk about it because we don't know personnel things and things like that. But given how Philly is constructed now, if they can keep most of their pieces, do you like? Now I'm not saying back to Super Bowl. I'm not saying winning, Wes, but do you like their chances competing next season and at least being a playoff contender? We don't have to go to the big game. That's a big reach because they, But I'm saying, do you like them as they're currently constructed? If everybody's healthy.
I mean, honest with you, I mean, defensively, yeah, but I mean, I still got questions about the offense. I do.
Okay.
I just do. I don't. As we talked about earlier, they did a whole lot of just scraping by. I mean, they obviously dismantled the Chiefs here, 22-40. They obviously were put into some good field position by Mahomes' mistakes and things of that nature. So, they had good field position, and then the fact they were playing from behind, which you said if they had them playing from behind, then it would be a situation that the Chiefs would be in trouble. But they had them playing from behind, so they were taking risks, and because of that, they were also putting the Eagles in good field position. Because we talked about this earlier, but I mean, granted, he's the MVP, and that's great and all, but I mean, Jalen threw for 221, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was 17-22, so he didn't miss much. But he obviously missed once because he had the interception. I mean, these ain't world-beating stats, but they got the job done, and that's the important part. You know what I mean?
I'm with that. Well, that's the thing, though. Like, let me ask you this: do you think? And I know Jalen to me is an interesting amalgam of a quarterback because in a lot of ways, and I'm gonna say this, and somebody might come up, he is a more polished. I'm gonna say this is a credit to. This is something else you might buy a little bit. He is a more polished, better passer. Tebow-esque quarterback.
Oh, well, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But so the NFL wouldn't give Tebow a chance. You already know how I feel about that.
I know that. But what I'm saying is this is maybe because we talk a lot about, and I know Patrick runs occasionally, but Patrick is not really known as a scrambling quarterback. He's not a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think this is, and I said this in the show last week, that we get a mobile quarterback and the return of prominence of a genuine bona fide running back. And so you have that. Now, obviously, Saquon probably didn't have the game he would have preferred to have in the Super Bowl. But the defense, and this is the beautiful thing about it, almost like basketball, right? Sometimes, even though let's say your number one player doesn't have the best game, they still are a defensive sink, which means they're going to draw double teams, right? So if one team just game plans for the one star and doesn't pick up the other, that's problematic because if the other star's got at least, enough talent to kind of lift, you might be in trouble. And I kind of think that's what happened to them tonight. It was like they keyed so hard on not letting Saquon hit home run shots. It worked actually in my favor because I told you, I said I wasn't sure if Saquon would hit home run shots, how that would work because you would be, Philadelphia's defense would potentially be on the field a lot longer. In a roundabout way, the fact that they keyed on Saquon so hard sort of helped Philly because that allowed them when Jalen was getting runs or like the small runs that Saquon was getting, or when they put Gainwell, he came in and gave a little breather, but he didn't really play up to. I mean, of course they were keying on all the running things except Jalen, but that is all I have to say is they kept cutting them little by little, running the clock, like you said, burning the clock up. So they're eating the clock up, but But it's just because they keyed so hard on Saquon, they couldn't accommodate for nothing else. And let's not forget, I know Jalen threw for 2. Technically, if my man wasn't down by contact at the 1 yard line, he technically would have thrown for 3.
Yeah, that's true.
And he did rush for the one with the tush push or the brotherly shove, if you will. So I mean, maybe we're gonna come into an age, West, where, and then listen, the MVP tells me that. Now I'm not saying Josh Allen is, but the MVP vote, if we're gonna say stats don't matter, right? Stats don't matter. Impact does, allegedly, even though then Jalen would fit the motif. He's a proven he can win, and if he can win, and as long as he doesn't have total meltdown games, like you can't be throwing 5 and 6 picks, but mostly safe game. Better than a game manager, because he's better. Wes, the man ain't Trent Dilfer. We got to give him that. He ain't Trent Dilfer, okay? I think it works well for them. And to your point, Kellen Moore made the adjustment to not try to do to him what they did to Dak in Dallas, which was make him keep dropping back and throwing the ball. And he said, well, let's trust the run game. We're going to go to it. They told a percentage tonight during the broadcast coverage that they flipped it, and the play call for run game was like 57% or something after the change. For the remainder of the season, they were calling if you think about it that way, it means 2/3 of their play calls were going to be some kind of design run, whether it's halfback, something with Jalen, something like that. That's really what they were doing for the second half of the season after the adjustment. So they bought into the fact that, hey, we're a better rushing team. Let's lean into our strength, which I think bode well for them. Again, hats off at least to them for queuing on Saquon, but the queuing on Saquon might have actually been the undoing because they didn't account for the Jalen factor as much, and that ended up coming back to haunt them.
No, I mean, I agree with that, because when you think about it and you look at it, I mean, think about what happened. I mean, when I think Devontae Smith hit him over top of the head, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's because that was an obvious running situation, because why would they be passing at that point in time? But because, just run the clock and get out of here. Nah, they said we're going to put another one on you. And they did. They hit him. And they hit him good. Hit him real good. So.
And the play that they had that went down to the 1, that was another play where you would have thought traditionally Philly would run the ball there. And they didn't. They opened the top up. They said, oh, you think run, we got something for you. And then it was 1-on-1 on the outside. The safety was not over there to be able to help. So, Jalen got the throw where it had to go. My man he needed that 1 extra yard, but they got it on the next play. So it is interesting when you look at it, because they were unconventional, but their risk was mitigated risk in strategic spots. So they did Sirianni's thing, but they weren't so aggressive that it cost them the game. Because I know that was your concern. Like, will Sirianni be so aggressive that he ends up blowing the game for them?
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, it worked out real well. It worked out real well for them, and congratulations once again to the Eagles. Byron was trying to join us, but I sent the wrong link earlier, and I think he just gave up and probably went to go celebrate somewhere. So I don't know if he's gonna join us, but real quick before we get out of here, Brad, man, we were talking about it via text earlier this morning, I think. Man, the Lakers, bro. I told you, Rob Pelinka can't get nothing right. I told you.
That was my second statement. That was my second thought after I said, oh, that's crazy. Then I was like, Rob Pelinka can't make a deal to save it. The only deal he can make, somebody got to set it up for him. He just reaped the benefits.
Yes, I'm trying to tell you, man. My man can't make a deal for nothing. Nothing at all. Anything to do with him making a good deal don't work. For those of y'all that don't know what I'm talking about, the Lakers decided that they really did need a center, especially with Anthony Davis being gone and shipped off to the Mavs. So they went out and got Williams from Carolina. And come to find out, my man got some hidden issues the Lakers didn't like, so they failed his physical. And then they sent him back to Carolina, and they said, we want Dalton Connect and old boy back too. Cam Reddish, I think is his name. Yeah, they want their pieces back, and they giving them they damaged goods back. They say we got rid of damaged goods when we sent AD to the Mavs. And AD proved that kind of sort of they were right.
Confirmed he will be out multiple weeks per I believe the GM.
Of course he will. Man, the man is built to glass, man. It just he was playing so hard because he wanted to prove that everybody was wrong. He should have stayed in LA. And Luka trade didn't make sense. My man was out there balling. And next thing you know, my man go down from a non-contact injury, just tumbled to the just tumbled. Just
I know. Just and the crazy part about it is, Wes, and I mean this with all due respect to AD, and we'll talk about Mark Williams in a second about how crazy that is.
Yeah.
For AD, I would just say this: even though the man is made of glass, the crazy part about it is when the man is on the floor healthy.
Oh yeah,
the man is a certified bona fide first ballot Hall of Fame. I mean, it's the crazy part is the man's resume. The man don't be on the court. You see, Ben Simmons, this is what you could be. You could be productive when you show up in the place. See, AD, listen, we trip on AD about being hurt, right? Yeah. We trip on Zion about being hurt. We trip on, but think about it is when AD is there, if AD is mostly right, the man go show up and deliver. I mean, I had to give it to him. So at the end of the day, even though this poor brother made of glass, Wes, the man still is at least in my opinion, he should be a shoe-in Hall of Famer. And the numbers speak for themselves, even though he don't be there like 56% of the time.
Hey, I mean, yeah, he's definitely Anthony Davis is an amazing basketball player. And he's not necessarily the best when it comes to reliability.
Yes.
But when he gets out there on the floor, he gets busy. I didn't do that. He gets busy. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we give him his flowers for that. Problem is, as my co-host Byron would say, when I need you, I need you. And some of the time when we need him to be out here in these streets, he's nowhere to be found. Because look at Austin Reeves on the Lakers when won't nobody else there. My man went out there and dropped 40 on him. Out here said, I got some. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The Lakers are playing really, really well right now. They figured something out, it seems like. I don't know if JJ done figured something out or what, but they've been winning, and they've been winning without their star players.
Oh, yes, I have been watching the Lakers as of late. I said, okay, no AD, no problem. Brogdon was at Madison Square Garden taking care of business when the news broke, right? I was like, oh, they short tonight. That might be problematic. Nope, it ain't even a problem. So the question becomes, Wes, as we look into the second half of the season, this is something to ponder. I know you're not a Lakers fan, but you're a LeBron fan, which puts you sort of Lakers adjacent.
Hey, I'm there right now. I'm there.
You're there right now. So I'm going to say it like this. The question becomes, can the Lakers that they have now, can they stay healthy and keep up the chemistry? Because remember now, we're going to be adding a new element, right? Now, this is the other piece. We're going to be adding a new offensive element. The great hope is that Luka will find a way to fit in without throwing things off balance.
Yeah.
And if he can stay healthy, Bron can stay healthy, and the role players fulfill their roles. The Lakers have the potentiality to make some noise. I'm not saying they championship ready, but you look at the teams slightly ahead of them, right? And you say, okay, well, we know size is going to be a problem in one avenue.
Hey,
really two, if you want to think about it. But
I don't know.
The trade-off is the experience. At least with LeBron and now Luka's got a little bit. He ain't won it, but he been there.
And Brent, I mean, you come from a team that played not necessarily the biggest on the floor,
right?
They made it work.
Right, because I think a lot of times if you have heart and you have, to me, they hear say heat culture, but I would say you have certain principles, right? Everybody got a rebound. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much we pay you. Your job, if shot go up, all 5 dudes need to be rebound. Nobody should be, unless we know we're gonna secure the rebound. Okay, you see Bron closing up. Nobody should already be up court because it should be gangbusters on this rebound, right? When you do the little things right, defensively, we gangbusters. We communicate. If we switching, we doing proper switches. We try not to create unnecessary mismatches. We understand with pick and rolls, they try to create mismatches. So we need to communicate so that we're moving and limiting mismatches. Well, the Lakers are doing all those things. So if you have good communication, everybody's flying at the ball, whether it's rebounding or defensively, you set yourself up where, okay, hey, we winning by committee. Like we got a guy that offensively, or maybe two guys offensively that can get us a bucket when we need a bucket. But we hitting open shots. We getting out in transition when appropriate. We're rebounding the ball. If you come with that kind of heart and grit, you win a lot of games, and you'll surprise teams that outsize you a lot of times, because that's really what happens in the East. The Miami Heat would just surprise them with just effort. It wasn't. I mean, you could argue. I mean, I'm not knocking Bam. I know he's an all defensive player, right? I get that. Man's an Olympian. I get that. Man is in the conversation for defensive player of the year last 5 years. I get that. But let's be honest. Bam's size sometimes is, it's a con. Sometimes it hurts him a little bit. He ain't as big as the 7-footers, right?
Right.
Even with that, it's the heart, right? Bam said, I'm 6'9", don't worry about it. I'm banging. So I think that catches them off guard, because they're like, oh, well, they undersized. So, they ain't go. If you come in with the right mindset, you can maximize your pieces. And sometimes you could make the case that that's better than having a team littered with superstars. I mean, talent is great. Don't get me wrong. But we've seen more talented rosters on paper. And we know that it was going to be bad. Like, see Brooklyn, during the KD, James Harden, Kyrie era, right? Mm-hmm. On paper, that looks good. Look at the Phoenix Suns of now. On paper, that looks good. If you don't know what year it is, you say, okay, the Bill, Book, and KD on a team together? Yes. Oh, okay. And I mean, even with this year, Bradley coming off the bench, he's averaging, I think, 17, right? Okay, that's not bad. But again, on paper, they look all right. But where is it at in the win-loss column? And I think, like you said, so I just hope that adding Luka into the mix doesn't upset the boat too much. But it should be interesting. And KD, I mean, you think about it this way, Dallas was like, okay, Luka was out. He might have been about to come back, but Luka was out. We traded one hurt star for another hurt star. And it is what it is. I hope AD gets better, heals up soon. I would like to see what the Mavs could do if AD could stay healthy and, see what him and Kyrie could cook up. I think it'd be interesting. Jimmy had a great debut from Golden State. For those of you who may not know.
Did Jimmy have a debut? Boy, he was out there.
Okay. Now I got a follow-up question. I see he wearing Butler III on the back, homage to his father who passed away last year. So condolences to Jimmy Butler and his family. I will say this, and I mean all due respect to Jimmy. I appreciate everything Jimmy did for Miami. He took us to 2 finals.
Yeah.
He took us to 3 conference finals.
Yeah.
He was 1 3-pointer away from taking us to 3 finals.
Yeah.
Them boys in Boston said, hey, man, listen, that dude Jimmy, but listen, Boston was so scared they had to go get Kristaps Porzingis. They had to trade half their team and get them a tall European white guy, 7-footer, because they were that scared of the Miami Heat. So let that be what it be, okay? That is what it is. Listen, ask Giannis about us. You don't believe us. Ask Giannis about us. But anyway, all that is to say, I hope that the Jimmy Butler you've seen this weekend, I hope he keeps showing up for y'all, because if he does not, then, the criticism of Jimmy, right, whatever way you feel about it, again, last 60 days aside, right? Jimmy Butler's numbers should be hanging in them rafters when he's done playing in Miami. 22 should be up there. It should be up there next to 3 and 1. I mean,
he would put his body on the line for y'all like one D Wade would back in the day. But
so
I mean, y'all, with combination of him and y'all soured that relationship real good, real quick.
Well, how much of that is Pat and how much of that is Jimmy? Who is to say? Who is to say? I mean, because you can make the case. Here's the thing, and I'm with you about Pat. You know how I feel about Pat. Pat, for those of you who do not know, Pat is a cuss word in my house. Sometimes Pat Riley and I, we don't see eye to eye. We ain't really been seeing eye to eye in a grand way since he ran D Wade to Chicago. Okay, but that being said, we've made our peace. Me and Pat have made the Godfather and I have made peace. Okay,
one Jimmy Butler, he kind of helped that out a little bit.
One Jimmy Butler kind of helped that out a little bit. But here's the thing: if you look, and this is going to be the argument. I give you who Jimmy is, but he just done more, and it's a smaller sample because it's the number of players. Jimmy Butler might be, as far as locker room presence goes, he might be most equatable to a Terrell Owens. And I say that because when he first gets there for a while, however that while is, sometimes that while is very short, sometimes that while could be a long time like it was in Miami. Jimmy buys in. Jimmy says all the things. He does all the things. He puts the team on his back. So he plays in this. I'm using an analogy here. Plays in the Super Bowl with bolts in his leg and all this stuff, right? But once it comes to the interpersonal drama, right? And I know Pat did some things to maybe run LeBron off. And we already know what he did to D Wade, right? So there's some history of that. Jimmy has wanted out of every organization Jimmy has played in professionally in the NBA. Okay, that's an unequivocal fact.
That's true.
These are facts.
This is true.
So the question, and remember, one of Jimmy's things was he wanted to go to a winning team. Well, right now, if the playoffs started today, the Golden State Warriors would not be in. They wouldn't even be a playing team. So Jimmy did not go to a winning team, which if he went to Phoenix, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news, he also would not have been on a winning team because they had the same record that Miami Heat had, and arguably a tougher conference to try to compete for a championship. So I say all that to say this. I hope that Jimmy shows up for Golden State. I would like Jimmy. I don't know if I want Jimmy to win the title with Golden State. I'm going to be honest with you. As a Heat fan, I'm a little sore about Jimmy. But would I be overly angry? No. I would love to see Jimmy be healthy, and I would love to see if he can contribute if he is healthy. Also, I'm taking bets right now, ladies and gentlemen, for how quickly him and Draymond get in a fist fight. Because he's already talked about Draymond in his post-game interview the other day about how Draymond is barking at people. When you start the first, my teammate barking at people. It's good barking. He said it's good barking. He said this. He's getting on people telling me in the right positions and whatnot. It's good barking. But how Jimmy gonna feel if Jimmy put up 25 and Draymond barking at him, and Draymond, like the other night, had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Are you glad that Draymond is active? But Draymond, I got 25 of them things. Don't come over talking sideways to me, cuz.
Well, I mean, if you ask Byron, I mean, Draymond is the heart of the team. He the leader, and he put Steph on his back.
Well, I mean, he must put Steph on his back so Steph could just reach his stuff on the top shelf because he ain't doing much else with it. I mean, I'm not saying Draymond doesn't serve a purpose. I'm not saying Draymond's not a part of those championship teams. I'm saying Draymond's impact in present is part of the reason the Golden State Warriors are the way that they are. Low key, and I know, when their GM left, well, I should say left. When he was leaving, he didn't re-sign his contract. Part of the reason was he didn't want to be a part of the heartbreak of breaking up, the big three of Golden State. But I really think that if Golden State had a real heart-to-heart and started the process sooner, they'd actually be in a much better position to compete with Steph still on this team. They paid homage to Draymond, gave him a big contract. Then they realized they were too far in with too much money tied up in Draymond. No offense to Draymond. They couldn't or were unwilling to pay Clay because of his up and down play that final year of his contract, walking free agency. Had they taken a similar path to Draymond, they might have been able to build something in the in-between time to sort of help them build this win now attitude. Because, I mean, right now, if you think about it, they're really in a lot of ways wasting the last potential vestiges of the brilliance that is Steph Curry as a shooter.
Yes. Because let's just be honest. I mean, we know that while Steph is not Anthony Davis, Steph got some glass body parts.
Yes.
And he does tend to find injury, and he's getting older. So, as you've always said to me many, many times, Father Time is undefeated. Unless you LeBron James, which he's just catching up to him.
He catching up to LeBron been fighting that dude for a long time.
LeBron said, I'm not going down. I'm going to fight. And he's been fighting. So, hey, Father Time is busy with LeBron. So maybe he'll lay off Steph a little bit, but I doubt it. Steph had to find his shot. He's been needing to find his shot. He's been struggling a little bit as of late, but my man was putting in work with Jimmy the other night, and they worked Jimmy in pretty well. And that's the positive, is that I think in a lot of cases it was hard to rest Steph, especially after the Jordan Poole thing didn't work out.
Right.
It's kind of been harder to rest Steph, but they said they're gonna work Jimmy in the in the non-Steph playing minutes. And if they can find Jimmy to be reliable, then they can probably rest Steph a little more, give him a little bit of a break, and maybe he won't, tear his body up as much. Because I mean, when Steph's on the floor, he's everywhere. Steph, the smallest dude on the floor, but yeah, he the one getting the rebound.
He the one
You
getting
got Draymond and Looney out there, and yet Steph the one coming in getting all these rebounds. Not all these rebounds, but getting rebounds.
he getting rebounds, yeah.
So I mean, my man does the work.
Yeah, and don't forget perpetual motion on offense. So even when he doesn't have the ball,
always
the man is running like Reggie Miller. I mean, I ain't never seen a person. The man probably run 20 miles a game. I mean, he down around baseline. He looping around, running off screens, and like he'll run off a screen. And sometimes if the teammate don't see him, that man done put all this effort and energy to run around a guy, not run into a guy, and still catch the ball and have to come up with okay. They ain't ready for me here. Okay, what we doing? Okay, let me swing this other way then. I mean, at times, and you and I've said this many times, the offense just becomes find Steph. It used to be find the open man, when they had shooters, but now it's just find Steph. So
yeah. So it is quite interesting the way that team has become. But if Jimmy can work his way in, and I think he will, because Jimmy also wants to get some money. He wants to get some money. So he needs to show that he has value, because you've already said that he's worked his way out of his money, so he got to work his way back into some money.
Well, no, he didn't sign that deal. He got money for 2 more years, Wes.
Oh, he did sign a deal?
Oh, yeah. So it was 121, but they brought that $112 million 2-year extension.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So Jimmy got, but here's the funny part. Jimmy got money, but I don't know what deal Jimmy thought he was going to get, because really, if you do the math, he only getting 1 extra year, Wes, that he could have gave him that easily. That lets me know that the problem really, I mean, I know Jimmy said.
Pat Riley. The problem was Pat Riley. Let's just be honest.
The problem was Pat Riley.
As it always is. Most of the people that leave the Heat, if they not one of Pat's boys and they don't buy into everything in their star, they tend to get shipped out of Miami. And that includes the biggest star that has ever been in Miami. They renamed everything for the man.
For the man.
Miami.
Right.
Yet Pat still was the reason why he had to go, because nothing in Miami is bigger than Pat Riley. Pat Riley is very Jerry Jones-like, but he makes good decisions.
Occasionally.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I said occasionally. Occasionally,
he can build a championship team and he can blow it all apart, but he can build another one. Jerry didn't build a championship team. He got a championship team and he blew it apart.
And he ain't and like Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses and all the king's men, they couldn't put the Dallas Cowboys together again.
Yeah, they've been broken eggshells ever since. It's interesting when you really think about it. But yeah, Pat Riley is definitely the reason why, in my opinion, in my expert about nothing opinion, he's definitely been the reason why stars leave Miami. The only people that stay are the role players, and because they do the grunt work. You got your Lonzo Mournings, you got your Udonis Haslams who stay there for
remember Lonzo left.
Yeah,
he was
got the point.
Yeah, Lonzo left. So even now, Lonzo came back. So like D-Wade came back. But normally, to your point, once the star leaves, when they come back, they are the star of yesteryear. They might have some brilliance left, little pops left, because Dwayne Wade, the last dance tour, Dwayne Wade had pops of brilliance. He wasn't Dwayne Wade of every night, but it would come in waves and doses. You're looking and be like, okay, D-Wade, and he was coming off the bench too, so that's the other piece. Same thing with Zoe. Zoe was coming off the bench on that team that ended up winning the championship. But you're right. Once Pat ruins it, they go somewhere else. They come back. If they come back, the star is a little dimmer. So I'm with you. Now the question becomes how much longer then, if you're Mickey Arison, okay, how much longer do you, because now you might make the case, Wes, based on what you just said, Pat Riley could be a liability come free agency, because now if you're a superstar player and you're considering Miami, because tax-wise it is advantageous, location-wise it is advantageous, culture-wise and organizational-wise, outside of Pat Riley drama, advantageous, because we know that if they get talent, the Heat normally can put together a team and build around it.
But some people, let's be honest, we've heard this. Some people don't want to go to the Heat because of the Heat way. They don't want to have to deal with all the extra that comes with being a Miami Heat player. And obviously, it builds championships, it builds contenders, but it's something extra that's a lot of people don't want to deal with. And if you just a person, you're not like a bona fide star, and even if you are, there's still nobody that's bigger than Pat Riley on the team.
Right. No, I'm with that. So my question, I guess, is how long does Mickey Harrison tolerate it before he moves to like
I don't think
Alonzo Mourning as a protege to say, okay, well, Zoe, you've been watching you're not the Godfather, but and that bodes well, because if the Godfather finally hangs it up, right, and we appoint you the position, all right, you understand the shrewdness of the business, sometimes needing to do things, but you also get it in a way. And I know Pat is a former player, but the time Pat played was back in them ancient of days, Pat them won't even on TV like talking about, but Zoe played in a time where he was on TV. He understands the way things have progressed. He understands the perception of what free agency does and what a free agent of a more modern era. And I know Zoe's been retired for a while, so folks don't, but I mean, obviously his retirement is much sooner to us, a more present event than Pat Riley's retirement as a player.
Absolutely.
Most people would know Pat Riley, if you're not a big basketball aficionado, probably from the 80s as the Lakers head coach, right? Some people may not, if they're modern viewers of basketball or in the NBA, they're not historical watchers, they may not know Pat Riley had a stint in New York. Then he came to Miami and coached first before he went upstairs and became the president and general manager. All of these things a long time ago. So I say all that to say this: at some point, Pat is getting up there. At some point, Pat gonna have to hang it up. I think if they transition to somebody like Zoe, I think you keep the culture element. So, like you said, Wes, there are going to be people that don't want to do the culture piece, like the being at weight and the physical things that they do to get you ready to be able to compete, play defense at a high level, all these things. But the other piece is there are going to be people that want to come that were willing to do that work because they want to become champions. But the Pat Riley piece of it might be a barrier. And so that becomes a concern. If I'm the owner of the team, hey, Pat, listen, I'm not knocking you. I appreciate everything you've done over the last 30 years. You're getting up there, and at this point, and I'm not trying to be an ageist, but at this point, Pat, your persona, your personality is starting to become a hindrance to us being able to gain or retain some of our talent. And that could be problematic. We done had now several instances, big ones, where you and someone on this team or in this organization are having a standoff, whether it be, and to some extent, I'll even pick on Shaq. Shaq left because of the situation with the medical stuff on the team. He felt like they weren't giving people, the right rehab and stuff that was leading to more injuries. He didn't think they were, and this is in the midst of Dwayne Wade having a shoulder injury after Shane Battier blocked a shot. No shade to Shane Battier. Shane Battier was making a clean basketball play, just happened to dislocate Dwayne Wade's shoulder. And so the Heat was sort of in the middle of a slump. In their title repeat, they ended up making the playoffs and losing to Chicago in the first round. The following season, Shaq, of course, wants out like 3 weeks into the season, and he ends up finding his way to Phoenix. But Shaq's complaint was that the medical staff wasn't up to snuff, right? But Pat Riley is the GM of the team, Wesley. He's hot. And if the medical staff isn't up to snuff, whose job is it to fire them? Pat Riley. So even though Shaq and Pat didn't have the same way that Jimmy did, or the same way Dwayne did, or the same way LeBron did, there is this pattern over the last 20 years where you're running some of the star talent away, and that's problematic. Now, are some of the stars dimmer when they leave? Sure, that might be so. Yeah. But you don't know what you could have had because you ran it out of town, and then you tried to sell us on the dream that Shawn Marion and Dwayne Wade was going to be the next MJ and Scott. And that's a statement Pat made, y'all. I'm not making this up. You can Google it to find out what I'm talking about. He said it again when it was LeBron and D Wade, and at least that one could be more accurate than him and Sean Marion, but I digress. I would be curious. I think if you let Zoe or somebody take over West, or you just find another GM. I mean, if you don't do, self promotion within the organization, I just think moving on from Pat would be good for the team, because now we can you still keep the culture in place, because that's what makes you great, but you got to remove the biggest, kind of red flag for some players who maybe are willing to do the work, willing to put the sacrifice in because they want to win, but they're not willing to have a guy, because you let what we read tell it. Sometimes Pat disrespected people. It was Jimmy's dad, and they said Pat cried and blah, blah, blah. It was the thing about disrespecting LeBron's wishes, about not telling about the birth of his daughter, and he told it anyway after the final, after LeBron had lost the finals. There's a lot of extra stuff where Pat sometimes throws gasoline on the fire. If he wanted to tell Jimmy to be quiet instead of doing it in a press conference, he should just call Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy, listen, bro, you ain't on the floor. Shh. That way you don't embarrass the man on national television. You're still mindful and respectful, because, again, apparently his dad, Pat, so, I know his dad was sick. His dad hadn't passed at the time, but Jimmy.
Yeah, no, I definitely,
I
definitely agree. Pat Riley is probably going to, potentially be a cuss word in your house. I mean, obviously, you guys found a way with Jimmy to get almost to the thing, but now you got to go back and retool. And I know you kind of sort of get hype over Tyler Hero sometimes, and you think he's gonna do all these things.
I need him to be healthy. I need him to be healthy. He got to show me, can he last to the playoffs? I agree. The man can cook. Can he last to the playoffs? Because if his team becomes Bam and the rest of them, we in trouble. And that's not disrespect to Bam, but Bam's best role is the second piece on a team, or at worst case scenario, the third best on the team. Like, he's a good guy. He can score when he needs to. I mean, sometimes it'd be streaky, but I just don't think you could build a team just around him. But if Tyler is averaging Jimmy numbers as far as points and assist production or higher, and he can stay healthy and be consistent, then you got something. And then what Tyler gives you is a player with a better outside touch than Jimmy, which makes him match modern NBA trends. But Tyler is not just a shooter three guy, right? Tyler will get inside, mix it up. He'll go to the cup. And he's looking for other guys. So that's the other thing. So, I mean, if Tyler can be healthy, I'm not so hype on the man West that I'm not a realist. I got to see the man be healthy. But, like, as far as when he's available this season, when he's healthy and on the floor, Tyler Hero has delivered. So we'll see what the back half of the season holds for us as we run up to the playoffs.
He's had his moments, and I mean, I guess we got your favorite favorite player in Duncan Robinson. He's still hanging around.
Man, no, listen, hey, I'm not gonna insult Duncan, because when I went to see these cats in person, Duncan Robinson said, "Hey, I heard you was talking about me, sir." I got something for you, and I was glad to see it. So, I mean, yes, Duncan Robinson is still in the building, but that's also because they couldn't find nobody that wanted to take on that contract.
Another Pat Riley problem.
Hey, shout out to Duncan. Hey, Duncan, despite all of the noise around you, still come out, you play hard. Sometimes you surprise us with you dash into the cup and get layups and little dunks. I mean, also, I always am surprised that you're 6'7", because you don't look 6'7", but that's not my business. I'm glad, even though you slightly overpaid, I'm glad you at least show up to work every day and give it your all, which is the best I can ask for, given the fact that Pat Riley gave you a contract I wouldn't have gave you. I'd gave you a contract. Just not that contract.
Not that contract.
Just not that contract.
Many that gave him that contract. But I mean, also, when you look at the fact that weird things happen in the NBA all the time, because Rudy has a multi-time defensive player of the year, and I don't understand that. So the NBA is weird sometimes.
And Rudy also got yammed on by Draymond.
That's the only time that Draymond show up. The only time Draymond is really showing up these days is if Rudy is around.
So what you're telling me is they got to get him some meta goggles. He needs to see Rudy every time he touched the floor.
You put Rudy around this man, he a bona fide superstar out here yamming, balling, shooting, doing it all, giving you assists here, there, and everywhere, doing all of the things. Now, when Rudy ain't around, he's the Draymond of today. But that's not here nor there. But Brent, I guess let's go ahead and get out of here, man. Hey, man, we appreciate y'all joining us for part 2 of the show with our new format, which Brent, you have to review it because you couldn't actually see it because of the way things are set up. But we appreciate y'all for joining us. Y'all be sure to check out Give the Hands a Wait on Instagram. She got a bunch of things going on. I don't have QR codes right now. Work on that, maybe. I gotta do some investigating. Be sure to check out bigdogsonly.com. Support the man Byron and all that he got going on. And one time for the fellas. Go Birds. Shout out the Eagles. Fly Eagles fly.
Go.
All those things. Oh, let's go.
Go Birds. Congratulations to the champs. They got the chip, Wes. They got the chip, and it wasn't made by Lay's.
No, I have any chips tonight, man. I ate Oreos. I was so
My man, listen, I'm telling you, at halftime, I know this brother was hurting. Now, I didn't want to jump the gun because I'll say this, then we'll close it out, Wes, so we let the people go. My mom texted me, right? Because I told her earlier today. My mom is a Colts fan, but by trade, she is a bandwagon Chiefs fan. My mom, I told her, I said, well, I guess I will hear from you tonight if Eagles take care of business. So right before halftime, she sent a message. I imagine you're happy with yourself. Like I went out and I ruined the Chiefs. All I said was, hey, the Chiefs got to show up and play. And I did tell her, I hoped, and listen, it was better than my wildest dreams. I had hoped that Kansas City was going to get what was, and boy, did Philly deliver. But it was fun. My mom, I bet your house. Like, oh, no, Mom. But I did tell her this. I said, Mom, I've seen 28-3. It's too early to count your chickens before they hatch. I said, I'll check back in with you when the chickens hatch. I didn't check back in because my sister came in with about 30 seconds left in the game and said, fly, Eagles, fly. She's also a Cowboy. So when she hit her with that, and my mom did not respond, I knew, we had it. But my mom, she came. So the boys got the chips tonight, Wes. And now that they got the chips, they can have all the Eatos they want.
Like I said, I had some Oreos and I had some crackling because those are Eatos. That's all I had, man.
That man didn't want them nowhere near the chip, and they got it anyway. He said, we can get all the chips. Don't worry about it.
That's all I had. I ain't having no Eatos. I ain't want to touch them. I had them ready though. Now, let me tell you. If Brand, it didn't happen. But if I was gonna put them up and say which one y'all want, but
Ooh.
But that didn't happen. So preparation for nothing but snacks on day.
My man has snacks on day. My man went in there and bought all the PepsiCo's lineup. He said, "Let me get one of these, one of these, one of these." He said, "When we get up here tonight, we gonna be a lazy train."
Oh man, they didn't. Trust and believe me, they did not want to lose tonight because I would have been out here in these streets. But it's neither here nor there because it didn't happen. And the Eagles won, so shout out the Eagles. All right, y'all be sure to check back in with us on Tuesday. We should have our show then unless something goes wrong, which can happen. But if it does, it does. But other than that, we'll be here. Appreciate y'all.